Today on Online for Authors, I'm chatting with Cristina LePort, author of Change of Heart. Welcome, Cristina.
Thank you very much for having me.
I am super excited to have you with me. Before we really jump into the conversation, why don't you tell readers what they're going to get when they open up the cover of Change of Heart?
They're going to get a mystery right away. Change of Heart starts with a mystery. The numbers of heart transplants is going up in New York City. And doctors should really be happy about it because there is a shortage of heart usually. But the problem is that the number of heart transplants goes up because the number of suicide is going up. And these people are committing suicide as like according to instructions. So they shoot themselves in their head, but they avoid the area of the brain that is in charge of the heart beating. And so they shatter their brain, but the heart keeps on beating. And they're doing that right in front of a hospital. So the heart is ready to be transplanted.
So we know something is amiss right away. Absolutely. Yes. All right. So I want to know, when I was reading it, it was one of those on the edge of your seat kind of things. Like I kept having to read. What made you decide when you were going to write that you wanted to do thriller versus any of the other genres out there?
I always loved thrillers. Although I came to writing them kind of a little late in life. I was in my late 50s when I decided I wanted to try writing a novel. And before then, I wasn't really interested in writing. But I never really had any doubt about my genre. It's like I never even thought about it. If I was to write a novel, it was going to be a thriller because that's what
is that what you read? Like if you were going to go to a bookstore, is that what you would pick out naturally?
Mostly thriller, mystery. I just like the suspense. And also the putting together the clues to create this mystery and then resolving it and driving the reader, it's to higher and higher stakes, and until finally there is this release in the climax of the book and everything has to get resolved.
Yes, and I love that. You did a good job with that because I would keep telling myself, okay, after this chapter, I'm going to put it down so that I can, go to sleep. And inevitably, I would have to read a couple more. I would be reading it until I couldn't keep my eyes open. Then it was like, okay, now I have to close the book. But so you did a really good job of keeping the tension high enough that closing the book was going to be very difficult. So,
that's the greatest compliment to a writer of thriller.
Yeah. Where did the plot line idea come from? This idea that people were killing themselves in order to provide hearts to people. Like that's kind of a crazy out there line. Where did that come from?
I started with the idea that I wanted to, as a backdrop of this thriller, I wanted to have the worst thing that can happen to a person within the realm of cardiology, because I'm a cardiologist. So the worst thing that can happen is that your heart is not functioning and they've done everything they can. And now you need a new heart because medications are not really helping. And so that alone, if you think about it, creates a very big conflict of interest because for the person to get a new heart, somebody has to die.
Right. It's not like a kidney that I can give one and keep one. Right.
So that alone off the bat is a big conflict of interest. But then I spiced it up. I got the idea from the kidney within the kidney transplant. There is such a thing as a chain. You can if you don't have a donor, you can go ahead and sign up with another person who's not compatible with you, but you're part of a chain. And so in this group of people, there are other people who sign up with the same problem, and maybe you can cross over.
Oh, okay. So like the person you signed up with might help someone else, right?
But then applying this to heart, obviously somebody has to die. So then I had to create the whole mystery, how these hearts are going to come, and why would people kill themselves, and
exactly,
and are they really suicide, or maybe they're not, or
right?
Maybe some of them are, some of them are not,
and which ones and why, right? Absolutely.
So build up to the mystery like that.
I like that. I like how you took things that are actually happening in the medical
Right.
field and then like transported them just
Exactly.
a little, because there isn't that kind of list for the heart
Not
transplants.
For the heart.
Right. Right. But you made it so in order to make this
Right.
book make some sense. That's great. So your main characters are FBI and kind of private detectives, which is outside of your realm of medicine. So did you have to do a lot of research in order to like get their roles correct? And then also doing things like understanding cybercrime, which is something else that also comes into play in your book.
Yes, to both. So the FBI, I had done a lot of research for my first book, Dissection, because also FBI had a major role in this particular book, Change of Heart. I had to research how difficult the training is, because the protagonist, Charlotte Bloom, had to go to this training. And there was one thing I came across, which is actually true. They have to actually get pepper sprayed in their eyes, keeping at least one eye open. And that is the truth, part of the training. So I put it in the book. I thought it was off the charts. I mean, I didn't make that one up. So that was really interesting. And the cyber part was a nightmare, because I am actually computer kind of still a little bit computer challenged. Certainly I had no idea, how hacking happens or when. So it was so funny, because in my first draft, and I gave it to the editor, and the editor says, well, this woman, she's a cyber specialist. She can't just Google stuff. She has to do something more.
Just to do more than that, right?
She's just Googling stuff. So anybody can Google that. You have to show the expertise. So I really had to read some books about it, and I asked some of my friends to recommend some books, and then of course I couldn't understand anything about those books, so I had to go through and read the stuff, and the wall and the firewall and this, and then the back door and all this stuff, and I hope I got it right, because to be honest with you, when she's doing those things, I'm not 100% sure.
Well, and that's okay, because I also am not 100% sure, right? It seemed right to me, but I'm like you. There's a lot of times where I'm writing things and it's like, oh, I really don't know how this works. And so, yeah, cyber stuff does get very confusing. I tell people that I love technology as long as it's working.
I know,
but as soon as it starts messing up, I'm like, I don't know what, like click something. Do you have anything over there you can click? I don't know. Turn it off, turn it back on again.
Against you. I mean, sometimes you cannot even get into your house.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a moment that I didn't have a key to my house. It was like, on the pad, and it stopped working. We had to come in through a window on top.
I know.
After that, we always kept the key.
And then it's like, oh my gosh, like I said, technology is fabulous unless it's not working the way you want it to. And then it's very difficult. I like how you put in real details, so like the being pepper sprayed. When I'm doing research and I find out pieces of information like that, it's always fun to put them into the book and find a way to like move my story forward, or to really help the reader understand what's going on. And it did that with Charlotte, as you saw her knowing what she was going to have to go through. I can't imagine being pepper sprayed in the eyes.
Right. One eye has to be open.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? Like, were there any other interesting facts that you found that you did not get to put in the book?
Well, I'm going to give you first one that I did put in the book, which is actually real. And that's the heart in the box. The heart in the box is actually a relatively new way of transporting hearts. In the past, the heart for transplant were put in these coolers, the red and white little coolers that you can go to a picnic with. And the heart would last only 4 hours. But with the heart in the box, there is this box with tubes and a pump, and you can pump nourishing and warm fluid into the organ, the heart, the coronaries of the heart. And the heart is, of course, outside the body, inside this box. And because it's nourished and because it's warmed up, the heart starts beating in the box. And this heart can be transported for 12 hours. And so I put it in the book, and that I did not make that up. That is true. I thought it was so interesting to find out that particular fact.
Well, so, the difference between a 4-hour transport and a 12-hour transport is significant.
So now you can ship a heart, for example, you could have not a chain, but a group of people, right. And there is such a thing. There is a database of right. people needing the heart, and so if you have a good donor for a recipient, because then across the country you can ship the heart across the country, which you couldn't do with a cooler.
Absolutely. Oh, that's fascinating. Yeah. Any other little tidbits that are cool like that?
Well, there was things that some of the things I didn't put in because although they were really interesting, didn't really quite belong
right.
in a novel, because the novel is not, everything has to be of service to the story. You can't just put in stuff.
Absolutely.
You like it. But there are new things. For example, they have animals now that are actually growing animal with genetically engineered to be able to have organs that can be transplanted.
Wow.
They're starting now with kidney from pigs. And also they're using vitrification, which is basically freezing by a special freezing that does not break the cells to preserve organs. And they have been able to transplant one kidney that was basically frozen that way, and it worked. So in theory, that comes to my next book. You could, in theory, freeze a body.
Right.
And hoping that you can defrost it later on. And my next book name is Defrosted. And that's what's happening.
Oh, yeah. We'll talk about that in a minute. That sounds really cool. I love that.
But that I didn't put in this particular book because it didn't really belong there.
Right. Well, and that's the way it is with research. We do all this research, we find all these cool facts, and I'd say 95% of what we find, we don't use. It's information that we have in our head now, but it's not anything that's going to help the book move forward.
But then it might help the next book.
Might help the next one. Yeah, you never know. Yeah. So let's talk just a minute about Charlotte Bloom. She is the FBI probie. She's the big main character of the story. Is she someone that you know, or is she like more of a conglomerate of people that you know?
She was in my first book as a very minor character.
Okay.
In my first book, Charlotte Bloom was a clerk in a hospital, and she was still, doing college. She was just part-time job, and she helps Jack Mulville, who was also in the first book, basically saving the world from World War III. So she works for the FBI for one day, and at the end, Jack Mulville, who really does, he doesn't like anybody, but he loves Charlotte Bloom because she's so efficient, even though in her relatively minor capacity. She greatly helps him. So she, at the end of the story in Dissection, he tells her, well, you work for the FBI today. If you want to really work for the FBI when you finish college, let me know. And, you have to go through the training and all that. So that's how she came to be the protagonist. Now, these years later, and she did so. She went through the training. Right. And Mulville is her mentor and her boss. And she is very, very protective of her because he almost sees her as a daughter because he doesn't have any children. Right. She doesn't have a father. And that relationship is kind of in conflict with the fact that she wants to be in the field.
Right, because he'd rather keep her nice and safe in a little room somewhere, right? Exactly. Absolutely. When you developed her character, though, was she like someone you knew in your head and you thought these are the kind of characters, or was it just overall people that you knew? Is there anything like that?
It's a really interesting question because it's what we call inspiration, right? What we call inspiration is not something that just happens out of thin air. It's all these things that you obviously look around and you see different people, and you observe them and say, geez, this woman or this person is really, really efficient. I love the way that they think, and they just do things, and they don't complain. They just go do their things.
Right.
Just do it. And so obviously I've seen people like that, and I store that particular quality in my subconscious, and that came out with her. And I wanted her to be a young woman, because that would be the contrast with the rough, almost misogynist, cursing, constantly pissed,
young, fresh,
a young girl.
Yeah.
And she is doing things like, basically says, what you're doing, you're like, where you're falling up, like she is making sure the movie doesn't fall apart and saves the world in dissection. So I love her so much, and some of my readers also love her. And it was, of course, big bits and pieces of different people. Maybe or things I read or people I met. It's like it's obviously a concept. You make a concept out of all these instances of complete. Hey, I finished Dissection. I love the book, but boy, I wanted to hire Bloom at the end. And so I hired her.
Yeah, so that's Bloom going to be in your next story?
No, because Bloom is, no, actually, I'll take that back. She does intermittently, because now she works for the FBI. So if Kurt Meyer needs a hacker or somebody, really, now he calls her on the phone. And so she is in the book I'm writing now, which it will be like, 2 books from Change of Heart,
right,
back into some system, but she's not the protagonist.
Well, good. So she hasn't gone away completely.
No.
She hasn't gone away completely, but she's
for the FBI when as needed. When you need something, to be hacked or researched more deeply than should be, legal or whatever, but not. She crosses the line a little bit.
She's willing to cross the line for him. Absolutely. Are you a pantser or a plotter? Do you write by the seat of your pants, or do you have everything written down in a nice little neat?
Well, I'm kind of in between. I'm a plotter in the sense that I cannot start a book unless I really know the plot. Okay. It doesn't have to be written down in details, and you couldn't really read my outline because it's not very detailed. It's just like
a skeleton.
Kind of occurs to me. Yes, but I have to have the whole story with what the main conflict is, what the subplot may be, and how am I going to solve this? Because everything has to be totally integrated, plot and subplot, including, I like that one of the characters has a girlfriend.
Yeah.
I mean, has to be integrated into the plot. So I have to know now. Once I start actually writing, if I have to have that, and the reason I have to have that is that you have to have a standard by which you choose the action of the character to advance anything, just about everything. Right. So how you're going to choose what they're going to do, what the characters are going to do next? The standard is the story. So if you don't have a story, I think it's a perfect recipe for writer's block, because you're going to be blocked until you find what the next step is. And then you can write beautifully with the story.
With the rest of the story, right?
It's a very dangerous thing, I think, to start writing. There's some author who do that. They say, my characters take me somewhere. I can't do that. I mean, I think you're going to waste a lot of time if you do that, in my opinion.
So it's funny because I am a pantser. I've tried plotting it out. And I've tried plotting it, and when I plot it and then go to write, really? I have nothing to say. Nothing to say. So it's funny how different people. Now, once I've written it, then I go back and I often have to rearrange things because, like you said, you write and then all of a sudden it's like that first draft out, and then I go and I say, okay, now we have to rearrange things, and what else do I need to add? So maybe it is harder, but I've tried plotting. I've tried 3 different methods so far, and none of them work for me.
Well, whatever works for you, right? I mean, absolutely. I don't think, I'm not saying that this is the way it should be for everybody.
No, but for you,
I change. Also, I change, like, even though I have the plot to the best of my ability at that moment, things change later on.
Yeah.
Just to give you an example, Change of Heart, I gave it to the editor, and he was really good. He said, boy, I like this book. That's good, but there is a big flaw. I said, what is it? Well, he said, the protagonist is not in the climax. I said, oh my God, that's right. And then I had to redo that part. And then, it's different than my plot originally. And it came out 1,000% better, because the end is much, much better than it was.
So let's talk a little bit then about the editing process, because that's happened to me on all 3 of my novels, where I was done. I felt really good with what I had. I turned it into my editor, and my editor says, oh, by the way, you need more of this, you need less of that. This story wanders too much in the beginning. We need a bigger inciting incident at the beginning. All of those kinds of things. And it makes it better.
Yeah. If he's a good editor, it makes it better. That's why you need an editor. Because
absolutely.
You're too close to, this is your baby. So you can't perform surgery.
Yeah, well, right. And so, you think of it in terms of doctoring, that you would never be able to go do heart surgery on your own child. That would be ridiculous, right?
So if you got to cut her off, you got somebody has to tell you.
Right. Absolutely. No, that's all right. So I think that it's interesting that you have found how beneficial it is to have someone else take a look and tell you this isn't really working the way you think it should, because you told me that the ending wasn't quite the way it needed to be. You then also told me that they said this isn't the way a professional cybersecurity person would do things. So you learned quite a bit by listening to other people, right? Absolutely. What is your writing routine like? I mean, are you still actively a physician?
No, I retired, fully retired at the end of 2022.
Okay. All right. And so do you write every day? Do you have a schedule?
I try, because I don't feel good when I'm not writing. And it's not just a guilt process. I don't think it's just that. It's just that I really need to have my world where I go to, and I although it's hard work, but I really like that. And it's so hard if you leave it, as you could probably imagine, because I'm sure it happened to you. If you leave it, like if I go on vacation, I just came back from a vacation of 3 weeks, and I couldn't really write then. I was just too busy, and you have to get back into it, and it takes time. You have to reread what you wrote.
Yeah, often you almost have to start from the beginning and read everything and figure out, like, where am I, right?
Because you're not in the moment yet anymore. You're just not in the world, and so I like to walk around trying to solve this problem, or trying to think, or dream about it, or wake up in the middle of the night and write down something, because it occurred to me how to solve something. I kind of enjoy that process. It's a little stressful, obviously, and it's hard work. I'm not saying it's not hard work, but sometimes I just sit down, and all of a sudden it's like hours later. Right? I mean, it's like you're in your own world.
Yeah, and I love that. I love it when it's flowing like that. When all of a sudden it's like, oh, and you're just and then the next thing, like you said, it's 4, 5, 6 hours later, and you're like, wow, where did the time go? Because you've just been so immersed in the. Absolutely. So you kind of referred a little bit about things that are coming up. Why don't you tell us about the book that's coming up after Change of Heart? And then I think you referred to one even after that. So let's hear about those.
The book that's coming after Change of Heart is going to come in February 2026. And it's not part of the series. It's not part of the Miner's World series. It's a little bit more sci-fi. It's the story of a doctor who gets frozen or cryopreserved nowadays, and then it gets defrosted 200 years from now to solve some biological problem that's invading the world, and he's the only one who actually has seen it earlier, while he was alive before, and he has to solve it, and it's a very complicated thing because he wakes up in a world that is much worse than the world he fell asleep, and so he goes from there, and so, by the way, people do sign up to be frozen today. So it's like, again, I took something that's real. Of course, nobody knows how to defrost them yet. But again, the one kidney actually worked. So
so you never know, right? I mean, it's right.
And then there is another book that's coming out also in 2026, but probably around October, and that is the first book of this series of these two books. So it's my very first book, the very first book I wrote, and it's called Dying to Remember. And is the story of Kirk Minor, how Kirk Minor got this strange medical knowledge that he has. It's like Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson in one head,
Right.
And that's the story in that book. It's the very first book I wrote, but it's going to get published, in October. And what happens is that Kirk Minor got into a terrible accident, and his brain basically got not destroyed, but very damaged, and he has to undergo brain surgery, and he has an experimental brain surgery, and everybody is giving him for dead, but he does wake up after a while, and all of a sudden he doesn't recognize his family, and is dreaming about another woman who he's never met. And he has this strange medical knowledge, but he doesn't remember anything about himself or his past life. So it's basically, and then strange things start to happen because the doctor performed the surgery, nobody can find them and all that. So basically has to solve his own problem without him.
Wow, that is really interesting. What is the name of the one coming out in February?
Defrosted.
And do you have a title yet for the one that's coming out in October?
It's a Dying to Remember.
Dying to Remember.
Because it's time to remember, and people are trying to kill.
Right. Absolutely. That's fantastic. So, hey guys, if you want to keep the conversation going, head on over to Novels and Latte Book Club on Facebook. There you're going to have a chance to win a digital copy of Change of Heart. Tell me something that you liked or learned in this conversation, and you will be in the drawing. Cristina, if someone wanted to talk with you about your work, to learn more about you, what's the best way to do that?
They can, if they want to, they can go to my website, www.Cristina with an H, Cristina, LePort, LEPORT.com. And on my website, there are a lot of little things that might be interesting. For people, there are Italian recipes, stories about Italy, what I do for Christmas when I make food for Christmas, and things like that, and my town, Bologna, and also medical things, cholesterol problems and things like that. And there you can also sign up. If you can sign up for my Substack, then you can get emails, and I can tell you all about when new books come out and all that. And of course, it's all kept private, but you can sign up for my Substack there, and also please sign up for my Facebook. And I'm not too good in media, unfortunately. It's really a kind of a nightmare for me. But I do try. I'm doing a lot of little things on Instagram now. I'm reading little excerpts of my books. And I talk about my book, but I'm really still, kind of challenged there. So
that's all right. We all start somewhere. So guys, I will have all of that in the show notes so that you'll be able to find Cristina wherever you look. Run out, grab a copy of Change of Heart. It's a fabulous book. You're going to love it. When you read it, make sure that you go ahead and review it, because we love a good review.
Yes, Amazon,
right?
Please.
Absolutely. And Cristina, I want to thank you so much for being with me today.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you for listening to Online for Authors, where I, Terry M. Brown, author of character-driven fiction and host of the podcast, introduce readers to characters they'd love to invite to lunch. Tune in next Tuesday for another podcast episode.